we are just after the 2 minute mark. Quick wave from Hamish there, who has just joined the Data Literacy Academy team. Actually, starts on Monday. So good to see him listening and learning all about our space. So my name is Greg Freeman. I'm the CEO and founder of Data Literacy Academy. Launched the business a few years ago, and ever since we've been on this journey of taking large enterprise organizations through the data and AI culture and literacy program, really, that ultimately targets those out there in the business outside of the data and the IT team. So our specialist audience is, how do we bring people who are not data and AI professionals by trade on the journey? And I am very, very happy and privileged today to be joined by Jordan Morrow. And I'll let Jordan do his own intro, but nobody goes further back in this space of data and AI literacy than Jordan. He is often referred to as the Godfather of Data Literacy, has a huge following on both sides of the Atlantic in terms of his own influence, and speaks and guides some of the most influential organizations in the world on the topic of data and AI literacy. So to have had Jordan reach out just before Christmas and say it'd be cool to do some stuff together was a real privilege and a really exciting time for Data Literacy Academy. And the first manifestation of that is this session right now. So I will let Jordan introduce himself, and then we'll get into the content.
Thank you, Greg. So Jordan Morrow, I'm owner and founder of Bounty Data, Senior Vice President of Data and AI Transformation at Agile One, but really just a huge nerd. And seeing what Greg has been doing and his team has been doing there at this academy, I'm very selective on who I partner with. And so I'm very happy to partner with this organization. I think they're doing the best job on the planet when it comes to data literacy and the empowerment of people. So this opportunity to be here is my honor. I'm very happy to be here and talk about things that are important to me. I've been on this journey, like you said, since about 2015, 2016. Never did I imagine it would grow the way it has. I'm a published author. My 5th book came out just last week. And so super happy to have a fun, nerdy conversation with you today, Greg. Let's do this.
Let's do it. Okay, so we're going to start by framing it in this way, which is, we are here today to talk about how both data and AI literacy are really the foundation and the underpinning of a good enterprise enablement of the very, very sexy and exciting AI topic that the world is currently obsessed with. However, in the 90s, everybody started to get their head around the fact that skills like Excel and even Word and PowerPoint were skills that you needed to stay employable. In 2026, that journey is data, but particularly AI skills. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is our company helping us go on that journey and therefore helping themselves, or are they leaving the people to figure it out for themselves? So Jordan, like you said, you've been on the data and AI literacy journey since 2015, but you've been around the space of technology and skills for far longer than that. How do you think about the journey of AI skills and the appetite for AI skills when you compare it to something like Excel or the Microsoft stack when digital first became a key thing? What's the differences and the similarities you see in there?
I've never seen anything like it, and that's the truth. And I think that there's a balance with it too. There's all this desire to use AI to upskill and bring people along, while at the same time there is legitimate AI fatigue. People are tired of hearing about it, but they know they need to use it. And so this whole world of data and AI literacy has never been bigger. And that's because in order for organizations to succeed, they need these skills. But here's the crux of it. Like in the world of data, all these hyped up terms, including data literacy, have been seen as these magic bullets to solve things. Data science, AI, machine learning, data engineer, data scientist, data literacy. 90 to 99% of people are not data professionals by background. And so organizations know they need this. They know they need AI skills, but they really struggle on figuring out how to systematize and organize and operationalize all these pieces together. So I've never seen anything like it. And it balances with people are overwhelmed. And that's why I think the Academy is doing such a great job.
Yeah, it's such an interesting point when you say around like we do all the work, like the technology work and the strategy work and the structures. And I think something we see quite often as a challenge, and it's definitely a data and AI problem, is I'm not the biggest baseball fan actually. Like baseball's probably the American sport that I don't love the most, but Field of Dreams was a really
That's my
important
favorite movie, Greg. Favorite movie.
really important movie in my childhood. And this concept of build it and they will come, right?
Yep.
And I feel like the industry, the data and AI industry, heavily funded by Silicon Valley and lots of VC money going into selling the data and AI world, kind of gives the impression that just build stuff and they'll come. The people jump on the journey. Why wouldn't they? Everyone does. Is that what you've seen as you've gone
Oh,
through?
100%. Yeah, and it's sad because if you build it, people will get bored when it comes to data and AI, or people will not understand, or people will be overwhelmed. The sports, like that is literally my favorite movie. I have a baseball behind me that I have had since I went to the field in like 1990. That's how long ago I went to that baseball field. Um, you can't just build it and then hope for the best when 90 to 99% of people don't have that background, especially when how many people purposely choose to not study this in school, right? And unlike sports, like my favorite sport is actually rugby. Field of Dreams might be my favorite movie. Rugby's my top sport, and people love sports, so they will come to watch it. If I just throw AI or a data tool in front of people, they might piddle around with it and then just go back to their old way of doing things because they don't know what to do. And that's where the literacy side comes into play.
100%. So let's get into this then. So for anybody who's not aware of the hype cycle concept or Gartner's hype cycle concept, hype cycles are flows that kind of new technologies, new ways of working go through. And Gartner track it based on how hyped up they are at first, when they hit the peak, as it shows here, and then what happens after. And I think the role of AI and the strategic position of AI within the hype cycle, especially generative AI, I would say, because it's become so mainstream in people's lives. Um, we're seeing already that due to lack of adoption, due to lack of value realization, due to much money spent, not much gained back, it's already starting to slide into the trough of disillusionment, as it's called, which is where people start to believe
Yeah.
that they've heard all the hype. And Jordan, you just made that point there around people getting tired of it and the lethargic of it already. But most of your businesses for people on the session are going through this right now.
Yeah.
They've been promised massive things. And Jordan, you obviously speak to a lot of senior executive teams. I'm sure you meet ones that are at different maturities within this hype,
Yeah.
within where they perceive themselves to be in this hype cycle. How are you finding execs are starting to respond to AI now? We're 2 years in, and they've maybe not seen the money coming back from the other side that they expected, and nobody's been able to prove the value. How are you feeling where we are on this cycle?
I think there's a frustration for some leaders. And I also think that there are some leaders who still realize that this is going to provide a lot of value. And what I find really interesting is it takes data literacy to realize you can't measure the value from AI in old school metrics. It is very different. This is something we've never seen. Like the internet democratized information, AI is democratizing intelligence and knowledge. That is different. And it's systematizing. So I think that even though, like, and this is where I actually disagree with the hype cycle a little, because I don't think you can fit AI into the normal hype cycle.
Sure.
Because you've got people who are frustrated, overwhelmed, that don't know what to do. They want value while at the same time still throwing money at it,
Yeah.
right? Because they know that there's something there. They just don't know how to get it there. And that's that literacy side. That's the upskilling and the skills. When I was in a private meeting recently with a speaker from Davos, World Economic Forum, she was going over the top 10 AI insights from the forum. Number one of them was AI skills, right? You're not going to just be able to throw a tool in front of someone and it's going to work. You have to teach them at the same time. So I think while there is some truth to the hype cycle with AI, there's a little bit more to it this time, considering how much power and it is advancing so blasted quick at this point that we can't keep up with it.
I agree, and when we're meeting with senior teams, and particularly when we're doing leadership programs, we like to emphasize that actually, although it sounds like we are obviously motivated to tell them that AI is not just going to disappear like some things do. Actually, I do believe this is a material way of working change in the same way as
Yes.
the internet. Like people always say, "Oh yeah, but Greg, we've heard it before. Blockchain was going to change the way we bank," and yeah, those things come and they go and they fail.
Yeah.
But actually, CRMs were a hype cycle and they're still here 25 years later. The internet was a hype cycle, it's still here 25 years later. We've got to get our heads around the fact that this is here to stay, but we are dependent on bringing the people on the journey to make it not an entire trough of disillusionment and actually
Yeah.
get people to. It's really interesting as well, Jordan, the point you made about not measuring it in the conventional ways. And
Yeah.
we've actually got an internal use case of this week where one of our salespeople has probably solved a problem we would never have actually got round to solving. And therefore, you could say that actually, well, is that valuable? Because you were never going to solve it anyway. Has it returned anything to the business? But the way that he's used AI to now kind of map accounts, map the businesses that we work with, map their potential value realization, um, it was such a big thing, we couldn't solve it with human capital, really. It was always just going to be too big.
Yeah.
But he has now solved it. And therefore,
Well,
actually, that's a massive return, even though we can't
yes,
really quantify it because we
you can't
probably wouldn't have
quantify it.
solved it otherwise. Yeah.
Like, how do you quantify the value of the internet? There's a comment by Aaron in the chat, and then in the Q&A, I'm going to hit on Rich's thing. But I talk about the internet a lot. I'm glad you brought it up. There is a bubble around AI. Just look at some of the investment. Just like there was a bubble around the internet. When that bubble burst on the internet, yeah, it had economic ramifications. The power of the internet didn't go away. Now, can we imagine living our life? We're doing this live stream
Yeah.
over the internet. Can you imagine your life without it? And if you can, more power to you. I, I handwrite still. I read books, tangible books, but I'm still, my life is absolutely incumbent upon AI. Now, I like how you also said you solved the problem. By the way, you want to get really nerdy, we could talk how AI is solving math problems that humans have not been able to. I think it's fascinating. But Rich brings up, have we reached a point where the AI or the ROI has leveled out? And I would say no. ROI can become exponential if companies do it right. And that's the problem where they're running into. Number one, they're trying to bucket it. Number two, they don't understand that there's an attribution effect, like you just said, Greg. It's you can't quantify what solving that problem did, but there is value behind it. And so now let's talk about Aaron's comment, because I think this is interesting. There is resistance that happens in the hype cycle. The moral component of AI resistance is fascinating. The environmental damage that AI is doing is something that has to be considered. Now, I'm one that would say in 1 to 3 years, the net benefit to the environment can be there. It's like going to the gym, right? I'm a gym rat. When you work out, you hurt yourself to improve yourself. Similar here. AI is absolutely doing things that are hurting the environment, but I do feel that in 1 to 3 years, if we incentivize it right, we'll get there. So there's a weird balance to all of this stuff. It's a fascinating time to be alive, and I hope we all appreciate what we're living through, and I don't think we do at this point.
I also think, and the environmental one is a massive question. I think it's a really fair thing for somebody to raise. However, what I would say is that one of the reasons that I'm actually so passionate or increasingly passionate about AI literacy, and this sounds like it's just a plug again, but it's not. It's really one of the reasons I'm proud of what we do, is that if people are just wasting their time with how they use AI, then that is hurting the environment. If people are using it instead of Google when it should be Google because they don't understand the difference, then
Yeah.
it's hurting the environment and it's poor for the environment. But actually, if we can get people to know when to use it in the right way,
Yes.
use it for
Yes.
value every time, actually the impacts on the environment will be more in the short term, but actually over time it will solve more problems, fix more issues,
Exactly.
and repay it. Plus, as is always the case, technologies will get better at managing the environmental impact,
Exactly.
as they did with Google searches. So let's talk then around data literacy and its position within AI adoption. So we truly believe and we see some brilliant use cases where if people want to get AI adopted, they firstly have to think about literacy, but secondly, there is no AI without data still, and we have to get our heads around that. Like data quality, it's been a boring problem for a long time now. But if we don't get data quality right, the outcomes we get from AI won't be right. And I think if we look at this model, which is an AI kind of adoption and literacy model, all of the things that we talk about within AI adoption are still relevant when it comes to data. So the ability to analyze, for instance, in the middle there, how do we appraise, predict, and detect and justify decisions with AI? We have to understand the data that
Yeah.
underpins it. We have to know where it's come from. If your people are sat in their day job making decisions on the back of Copilot or, God forbid, even bigger large language models that they don't understand and they don't know how they can stand by their decisions because they can't analyze it, they can't evaluate it. You've got, as it says here, a massive ethical problem. And to Jordan's point earlier, the foundations of data literacy are not what people think they are in our
Yeah.
opinion. Like most of the blockers you'll find with data and AI adoption are really about people's confidence and their mindset. And you've used that
Yes.
really powerful word, overwhelm, that I think a lot of people feel. And we do believe that if you just think about data or AI literacy as a skills problem only, you're absolutely missing the point. The point here is how do we build people's confidence? How do we build society's confidence in data and AI? How do we help them adjust their mindset to wake up every day and think about the problems in their day job that could be solved by data and AI? Because most people don't. Most people
Yep.
still do not wake up every day and think that problem I've faced for the last 10 years in my job, I'm going to solve it with data and AI today when I never have before. So we have to shift that confidence and that mindset before we can get to working with data and AI, using data and AI for value. So when you meet people, especially early on in their journeys, Jordan, how do you see that confidence evolve and why is it so important to be confident before you can actually use the skills that you might want to learn?
Yeah, I'll go right back to the gym, right? Like if you go watch bodybuilding competitions and think, man, I have to be that tomorrow, you're in big trouble. These are people who spend months and months and years building themselves up. And it's like me. Data literacy, the journey for me has been now, I've been in data my entire career, but the actual world of data literacy started 2016, right? And now we are in 2026. It's evolving. What I like to do when I talk to people who I'll ask them the question, how many of you feel you are data literate? And everybody, I tell everybody in the room, raise your hand, right? How many of us use a weather app when we're traveling? How many of us have to understand what kind of petrol or gas to put in our cars when the tank is? Those are data points that we naturally make decisions on. Where what I then try and do, because you're right, it is mindset and confidence. You have to take the seat at the table, but just because you're sitting at the table doesn't mean the food's going to jump in your mouth. You learn how to use a fork. You learn how to use a knife. You learn don't eat too much of this or I'm going to fall asleep versus that. You're learning how to process it. Everybody has that seat, but it's confidence, mindset, and going a step at a time. Like these old adages of how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you take a journey of 1,000 miles? One step at a time. Those are real. We're not asking people through data literacy to be as big a nerds as you and I are overnight, right? We're asking them just find your place. You have your place, you just might not realize it. And you're probably further along in the journey than you realize. When they can realize they're further along than they know, confidence can develop. When you put them in front of cases where they use data, the mindset can develop that I can do this. Then you start to grow them. But it is really step by step. And I think far too many companies want instant solutions because we have instant everything nowadays. But these things take time. And when you do it right, that value comes to life.
100%. And I think we talk about this concept of there is an assumption from going back to where all the investment is going in data and AI and all the sales pitches that are out there in data and AI that everybody will just jump to usage. Actually, if you're sat in this room right now, banging your head against a wall because you're a data and AI office or you're an AI office, and you just cannot get people to start using it for value in the way that you hoped, then actually you've got to think about the fact that if people don't understand something, they don't trust it. And if they don't trust
Yeah.
it, they're not going to use it. And when you get to usage, you can't get there without the trust and the understanding. And the literacy is the foundation of that. People will understand it, then they will trust it, and then they will use it. And that's really where we've got to get to. So this
Yeah,
is
you're spot on. And usage is just usage. I could literally sit in AI all day and it appears like it's a ton of usage, but I might not be doing anything with it. Same with BI tools, same with data. That you've got to get usage out of your mind and find other ways to think about this.
absolutely. And this is the data and AI literacy curve, which we released a data literacy curve maybe 3 years ago when we first launched the company, and about 18 months ago built AI into it. And it's just to bring to life what we see for anybody in the room who's not seen this before. A lot of data and AI literacy programs obsess over the stuff at the top of the curve. How do we get people to self-serve? How do we get people to have all
Yeah,
the skills we need? Actually, most of your organization, and to Jordan's point, 99% of the population isn't a data or AI professional. Most of the population in your business won't even really understand why it should be using it. Why is it valuable? How do I talk about it? What problems can it help me solve that I don't know about right now? How do I think about things that the business tells me I should care about, like using the right tool? Why do I use Copilot rather than ChatGPT if somebody's telling me at home that I should use ChatGPT? Like, if we obsess over everything at the top, we leave so much of the population behind. And I think
yeah,
we've really got to think about what is our program that we're designing internally? What is it aiming to deliver? Is it only raising the ceiling, which you will do by teaching everybody the stuff at the top? But if those people aren't confident and they've not got the right mindset, and that's 80% of the population potentially, and you
yeah.
miss out all of this stuff, all of a sudden you've let the population of your business down, and therefore your adoption will never get over 15 or 20% because you've
Ever.
not brought the more difficult people on the journey. So just to bring this to life really with the literacy curve. So where are we statistically in terms of the state of AI in 2026? So this is obviously the figure I think really that gets batted around the most, which is that 95%, according to MIT, 95% of enterprise AI pilots deliver no measurable P&L impact and never get to production. 46% of AI leaders cite skills gaps as a major adoption barrier. That's from a McKinsey report. Circa 6% of corporations are seeing tangible enterprise level AI ROI from a similar McKinsey report. These things just don't come together well when we think about if we've only got a subset of the population who are able to engage with our AI programs, with the projects we're running, with the tools we're releasing, we're never going to get to at the bottom there. 22% of leaders report a significant positive ROI, rising to 42% where mature literacy upskilling is in place. So that 20% difference comes from having the people who can help you extract the value. You get super close, John. You get brought in
Yeah.
by lots of businesses to talk about that gap. That 95% of enterprise AI pilots and the amount of stuff that's being spent and not productized, where are you seeing the real pain with the execs you're speaking to? Are they noticing that? Are they feeling the amount of money that they're wasting on things getting?
Oh, geez, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things I love that MIT report which showed the 95% because it illustrated to me that there is a true literacy gap too. Because when you read the metric, you're like, oh, they all fail. No, these are the enterprise AI pilots. What's really interesting is when you study the data more, and I think it says it in this report to an extent, shadow AI is thriving. But what that shows me is that, and for those that don't know what shadow AI is, go research it. But it's basically using AI. Your company doesn't realize you're using AI. That shows me your data governance is struggling, your executive data literacy is struggling, and AI literacy is struggling because you have people using AI without you knowing. And that is a governance, a security, ethical risk all over the place. And so, yes, companies are feeling, to your question, Greg, the pain of putting all this money behind things. And they're just like, why am I not seeing anything? Well, putting money behind it alone does not change things. People and behavior change things. If people want that bottom right one, the 42%, you have to be monitoring not just usage, change in behavior. So change management is a piece of it. Executive literacy is a piece of it. When those things go right, and by the way, from that Davos conversation I had, it is a 1 to 2 year ROI horizon on AI. 1 to 2 years. Companies want it tomorrow. So there is a weird balance in that literacy side that, yes, they're feeling financial pain. Without doing something about it correctly, you're going to run into that pain for a long time.
100%. I think that it's such a difficult situation with the macroeconomic situation the world
Yeah.
finds itself in, requiring in-year returns. But actually, so much money is being spent on something that shouldn't give you necessarily material in-year returns. It's going to be year 2, year 3, year 4, where really, when you get your head around it as an organization and you find the right use cases, it's going to drive immense ROI when you solve the biggest problems that large enterprises are facing. But again, to your point about executive literacy, if you as a data leader or an AI leader can't control the narrative around how quickly ROI should be received, you are really going to struggle. And that comes to having a literate exec. If people thought data and AI could be solved tomorrow, you've got a real problem. If you educate them to understand that that can't be the case, things are slow and they're slow deliberately, and you're in a regulated environment, so it has to be slow. But you've got to bring them on the journey as well, and it really is a top-down, bottom-up approach to solving this problem.
Yeah, 100%.
AI is moving faster than the workforce can. I mean, I personally feel this now. Like, I think when it was just the parts of artificial intelligence that I already knew and understood, I kind of felt I felt comfortable talking about it, using it. And now I speak to some people who are really at the cutting edge of what AI is doing on a almost weekly basis
Yeah.
now. And I all of a sudden feel like I'm questioning whether I'm AI literate anymore and whether I know whether like how we should be making the most of it. So um, worker access to AI tools rose 50% last year. That's Deloitte, fairly trustworthy. They do the Deloitte State of AI and Deloitte State of a number of things every year. And that is a massive increase. Um, but you do have to review the adoption numbers and not just the adoption numbers. I love that point you made earlier, Jordan, about they could be using it all day, every day. But if it's not driving the right use cases, the right value, and they're just generating cat pictures for their desk, they're not using it in the right way. And to the very fair point earlier about environment, probably a terrible use of it from an environmental
Yeah.
standpoint. We should have people using AI tools in the right way. Um, Yet 73% of knowledge workers using AI weekly rate their own proficiency as anything but advanced. So how can they help us solve those real problems if all they see it as is a bit better than Google? And then by 2027, and this is a dream state, which I am not seeing being realized because people just do not have their head around this space yet, but maybe I'm critical. By 2027, more than half of CDAOs will secure dedicated funding for data and AI literacy programs, driven by the failure to get expected value from Gen AI. So I mean, I don't want everything to fail in order for people to see that they need the people on the journey. But at some point, we are going to have to cross a chasm where
Yeah.
people realize they can't just keep pumping budget into big, wide scale releases of tools without bringing the people on the journey. And if it takes some really kind of like underperformant Gen AI programs to show that if you don't train people on things, they won't use them well to generate value, so be it.
Yeah, no, there's a great book out there called The Octopus Organization, and it really hits on companies who think they're transforming. They do reorgs, they do all the traditional things that we hear. 75% of reorgs don't work, right? Straight from the book. It's a great book. I recommend it to everybody. I'm with you. That is a nice dream for next year, but there's messaging and things that companies need to realize, or else in this day and age, with AI moving as fast as it is, they will be left behind. I don't really worry, like in my day job, about our competition. I worry about AI native startups who are doing it from the ground up. My company that I have, my day job where I lead the AI world, yes, we're investing, but no, I don't think people are investing enough. And that causes a problem. AI startups are coming along with very thin staffs because they don't need a lot of people and blowing things apart. That's where we should be worried.
100%. And if I'm obviously not CEO of an enterprise, but if I was, I would be terrified by the gap between what the rest of the world knows and what is known in my organization, because that gap is so real when you look
Yeah.
at even like young people coming straight out of college and just being able to build things that compete with enterprise in a few months. Like that should be terrifying to people. And if we've not got enabled organizations, it's only going to get worse. And at some point, enterprises will fall over because they couldn't keep up. That's just the reality of the way the market
Yep.
self-manages, right? Um,
Yep.
I think this is a really interesting point, and we've talked a lot about AI literacy, but we are both passionate about data literacy, and 46% of employers say that data skill gaps are slowing AI adoption. I mean, it's from an Amazon report from last year. I personally think that probably doesn't fully reflect even. I'd say that's
I think it's too low.
too
It's
low.
too low. Yeah.
Absolutely. What do you see as the connection between data literacy and AI adoption? Because
Yeah, for me, they're almost, when you look at the characteristics of them, it's read, work with, analyze, communicate. All four of those skills apply to data and AI. And then it's funny, I never realized my 3 C's of data literacy that I've had for years would be more important today than ever: curiosity, creativity, critical thinking. One of the things I write about in my latest book is a worry that I have, like going to the gym. I use that example a lot because it works really well with AI. When you go to the gym for 6 months and then stop for 1 or 2 months, you're going to lose a ton. We've been able to think for years on our own or complemented with something. AI will do thinking for us now, and if we give up our own personal thinking, we're going to weaken our critical thinking muscle. So that's that 3rd C. So for me, they're one and the same, and I wish people would realize that. Don't silo things off. Don't put a wall between them. Sometimes all you need is data in Excel. Sometimes you need a powerful AI model, but you need to read it, work with it, analyze it, and communicate with it with curiosity, creativity, and critical thinking. It's the same thing over and over. By the way, really funny, who do you think the best data and AI literacy like investigators are? They're children. And when I tell that to people, it reflects, like, I've got 5 kids. They're naturally curious. They're naturally creative. They critically think. They ask too many questions. We as adults are the ones who struggle. I could put AI in front of my kid for an hour and say, just go learn it. And they will do better than I would say an adult, because an adult will just get stuck. The kid's going to be like, oh, that didn't work. Let me try something new. Though all these skills from data literacy transfer to AI literacy.
Yeah, and one of the topics that's obviously very prevalent when I speak to people about somewhat data literacy, but particularly AI literacy, is the human in the loop concept, and are we actually still able to have employees who think for themselves and can critique what's coming out the other side of the tools they're using now? And those 3 C's, like you say, that then in a world of accelerated performance of technology in many ways, where we are getting to a point where a lot of the technical stuff can be done for us, those 3 C's become even more vital to be what we should be really teaching people, because they are transferable. If we just teach people, I say all the time, one of my favorite things to make super clear to anybody who is in this session: if you just teach people buttonology and you call that a data literacy program or an AI literacy program, you are letting your people and yourself down, because the
Yep.
buttons don't teach you how to use the thing. It's the critical skills that go behind it, the mindset, the behaviors, the logic, the first principles. And therefore, a good literacy program isn't just giving people co-pilot training. Let's be super
Can
clear.
I piggyback on that real quick? When we think about my journey of creating this in the first place, part of it was I created, while I worked at American Express, a plan to teach people how to use basic statistics, analytics, if you will, because all we were doing was training them on how to click buttons, just like you said. Training someone how to use Tableau, Click, Power BI, Sigma, all these tools is not data literacy, it's tool literacy. That doesn't mean you know how to use the data to make a decision. American Express shut me down and said, no, we're not going to do that. They're not ready for it, maybe in the future. I'm glad they shut me down, because then I got hired by Click, got to be an entrepreneur and build this whole thing. A few years later, guess who came calling for data literacy help? American Express.
So
So, yes, it's don't just teach buttons, don't just teach prompts. Teach people how to use data and AI to make their life better, and they will use it to make their life better.
100%. And let's take it back to basics. And I always say, right? I spend a lot of time talking about quality and governance of data. And firstly, I think it's a really hard topic. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely the stick of the world we live in, and it's certainly the unsexiest part of what is now considered a very kind of sexy job role in AI. But fundamentally, the principles of data quality, the principles of the data value chain, the principles of knowing that there's a continuous loop where things are being fixed and improved still exists. And to your point there, Jordan, I think something I'm seeing, and I'd love your opinion on this in a second. Data and AI are all of a sudden being separated in terms of the way people are thinking about them in businesses because, and this is a strong hypothesis from all the conversations I'm having, right? Because CTOs and CIOs all of a sudden see AI as this thing that they can actually build their career off the back of. If they hit a jackpot, all of a sudden they'll have the thing that's on their CV.
Yeah.
Data stopped being that about 10 years ago. It was supposed to be that oil that would feed people's CVs. And now it's just a headache that nobody wants to own. And actually, I think that's driving that separation where data teams and CDOs are becoming almost like the poor younger sister of
Yeah.
AI. And if this isn't part of your logic and your thinking with the data quality side and the way that people govern the data, they're never going to use AI responsibly if they don't use data responsibly. And how are you seeing that? Because I am genuinely seeing CTOs and CIOs pull them apart so that they can own the
Oh,
skill and
absolutely.
the appetite of AI and disregard the data. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I think we'll see that in perpetuity, right? And it's human nature, I think, to protect ourselves. And in their mind, they're thinking jobs are going to be lost, this and that, because they're buying into all the hype. And so they're trying to protect themselves by saying, I get to own the AI side of this. Well, guess what? AI is only going to be as good as the data that feeds it. And the moment you silo that off, in reality, for me, your data and AI strategy or your business strategy, they're one and the same. If you silo anything off, good luck to you. That's what I'm going to tell you. Because without good data quality, and to your point, it's not the sexiest thing. Who wants to go standardize, normalize, clean, and do that all day long? There are people that do, and I salute them. Good, do it. We need it. But a company that doesn't do that, you're going to find yourself potentially in massive trouble. Not just because you're not going to get value, you might eventually go in violation of the EU AI Act. The Colorado Act in the States is similar to that one. GDPR and data privacy because you're not doing it right. Like there's no reason to do that, right? The rising tide lifts all boats. Why don't we just do it as a whole, as an organization? Because if you don't do it right, not only might you be in violation of regulation, you might be eliminated as a company because a startup over here did it right. It's cheaper, they've commoditized it, and they've made it easier. So there's just no reason to do it.
Agreed. So 5 mistakes that CDAOs will make in their career. So, firstly, I see this every day. I speak to so many CDAOs who probably spend a lot of their time with the exec and the business people who are typically slightly more data literate and AI literate. That's why they're speaking to the CDO or the CDAO. Like you don't find Joe Blogs who doesn't think data is valuable coming knocking on your door. So it's definitely the case that a lot of people overestimate the data and AI literacy of their company, and honestly, even overestimate the appetite of their company. Oh, 10 people have come to me this week and said they want Copilot. Yeah, that doesn't mean that the other 20,000 are. You're just listening to like it's a poor
Yeah,
set. Believing a one size fits all approach will work. It won't. You can't just give everybody the same training. You can't just give everybody the same even in the same job role the same training. Like you
exactly.
go into a marketing team, some of them could be the most data and analytics people in the world. Some of them could be like, I don't think that's valuable to me. I hate it, kind of thing. So, um, assuming that everyone wants to learn about data and AI, definitely not the case. Wish it was, would make our lives so much easier, no doubt. But it has to be a change management piece. If you just think about this as a skills program, you will lose. This is about how do we win the hearts and minds? How do we change people's mindset? How do we change their behaviors and their ways of working? Jordan mentioned earlier, adults are particularly bad at this. We don't want that. We want them to think like kids and want to change. Trusting that the next tech solution will fix the culture, that isn't a thing. If you
No.
believe that, then there is no silver bullet to people. That is the
That's
thing
like
that I
that's
really,
like giving rugby boots, Greg. I'm going to use rugby because it's my
yeah,
favorite. Giving rugby boots to someone and thinking they're going to go out and win the World Cup. Just
100%.
putting a tool, the tech will not fix the people. Let's make sure
Absolutely.
people understand that one.
Absolutely. And then being too disconnected from the corporate strategy, still a problem. And now I think we're getting better. The industry has repeated the make it part of the strategy message quite a lot, and that seems to be landing a bit. But actually connecting that dot between the strategy and value, still a massive gap in the industry. And the best I have a really, really good relationship with a guy called Kyle Winterbottom in the UK who
Yeah, yeah,
runs Audition Group. I'm sure you know Kyle. He did a really interesting post yesterday or the day before about that connection between good businesses and good strategies and good data leadership and good data strategy. And got some horrendous messages back from people, which is a new interesting post from today. But we still haven't realized the value point, and that's really what matters
yeah.
here.
Yeah. One thing I want to pick up on Rich real quick, going off that last slide. He asked, like, what are good ways to spin this conversation to get people to buy in when internally people will say, we're already literate, this and that. What I say, Rich, is number one, it's kind of with my kids. If I tell them to do something, they don't listen. If my dad does, who his grandpa tells them to do it, they listen. One of the key things you can do is bring in an external person just to speak for an hour to leadership on things, like bringing Greg in, the academy, and myself. An external voice is more impactful on these things than an internal voice. Shouldn't be the way, but it is. Number two, create a library of proof of concepts and share it. Show where this has worked. Like we use data here for marketing there, and you're starting to get people to see that maybe they thought they were literate, but the reality is they weren't. Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Not at all, not at all. And Rich, I don't know which organization you're from, but we do have an assessment that can actually show that. And a lot of people now are saying to us, yeah, I think that the way that AI has changed people's mindset, everyone now assumes everybody's data and AI literate. We actually, before we get started, we need to prove to the organization that they're not literate now, which is probably a new world. And we can definitely do that. But I mean, yeah, like Jordan said, bringing Jordan in to read the riot act and remind people that the truth is the truth will definitely work, and it just kind of gets juices flowing, and that external viewpoint is really powerful. But how do we do this? So we've got to think about the journey, and like if you layer it up, we do believe in a raise the floor approach. I think yes, we've got to go top down and bottom up. If you just go top down, if you only work with the execs, you miss the point because the execs don't make them like they don't make decisions every day on the front line. They're not able to see the problems that can actually be solved in someone's day job. However, they do massively have the big business problems to hand, and that is something we should be solving to generate ROI. But we have to go top down, bottom up. We then need to think about, have we got specialist roles out there, not in the data professional landscape, but actually data governance, AI governance, responsible AI. They require a set of people to take this thing more seriously. And if you, big thing that we've seen, okay, if you just go data governance and responsible AI, which many businesses choose to, you lose the carrot. If we consider going back to that curve, that most people don't see the value in data and AI right now, they don't wake up and realize it's going to solve their problems for them. If you just then ask them to be a data steward or be a data owner, why would you do that? Nobody would do that. It sounds like an awful job when you don't know how it empowers you to solve the problems. So you've got to go carrot and stick. Then we've got things like technology adoption. We're not saying don't teach people the tools because they need to get comfortable with the tools, but it's only worth doing that if you've already shaped their mindset, their behaviors, their culture, their way of thinking, their critical thinking, etc. And then you get into the much more kind of technical stuff like your AI skills and your data specialist skills. But actually, top down, bottom up, execs and frontline workers meeting in the middle. I mean, we talk a lot about the frozen middle, and the frozen middle, those middle managers, those people who really don't want their world to change because their world is easy on a day-to-day basis. Like we have to as well hit them with a targeted leadership program, because if you don't unlock that frozen middle, nobody on the front lines is going to be allowed to do it. I mean, we had a case the other day where we came across a leadership group who were thinking about their own AI literacy and they were really keen to move their own AI literacy forward. But they were at the same time complaining that their people in their teams were doing their work using AI. And it was like, well, that is what we're selling you here in essence. Like, you're supposed to be getting comfortable with it, so you're comfortable with them doing that. If it's not so you can spot that
Yes,
they're using AI, like that's not the plan. The plan is to encourage them and like enable them. You've
absolutely.
got to get it all right. It's about enabling everybody, and you need all the layers coming together in the right way.
I like how you said that. The frozen middle to me is the most forgotten space in data literacy. I find that they maybe have the most important job because that frozen middle has to answer to executives and manage those who are going through the program. They have to have their own literacy that is in combination to the massive literacy that goes on. To me, that is the secret to success is that
Agree.
frozen middle, and you got to thaw it out.
We agree. Because nobody wants to be the middle manager whose teams know everything that they don't, so they just won't let it happen if they're not on the journey as well. So yeah, absolutely agree. So five principles. We as Jordan has five books. I only have one, but our book is on learnings from delivering 100 plus enterprise programs. So assess before you build. I mentioned the baseline assessment. Whether you do an enterprise baseline assessment or just knowing where you've got gaps. I mean, if you know that your adoption of AI is low right now and you can quantify that. So we've paid for 2,000 Copilot licenses and only 10 of them are used. Well, you've got a problem, right? It's not working. So you've got to have those baselines in place, those baseline measures, anchor to the strategy always. Find your executive sponsor. You're not going to win the whole exec. So I think I would say it would be career suicide to be an exec now who says that data and AI are not valuable, but to genuinely believe it and genuinely be able to articulate how it looks different, that's a different thing. And therefore, you're not going to get everybody on the exec to that level. You will get lip service from a lot of them, but you've got to find the people who really believe it and really see the way the world will look different. Address desire before knowledge, and choose where you go first. You need your first cohort to prove value, evidence success, prove ROI, prove adoption. And if you just go willy-nilly horizontal, it's much harder to do that. So think about where you go first and then design the change management program around it because there's a lot to be said for learning, there's a lot to be said for training, but actually what we really need. My laptop might be about to ring. It's not. Okay. What we really need is people who know how to embed it into their work afterwards. And that's where reinforcement comes from. So this is a question for Jordan. What does a genuinely data and AI literate company feel like in practice? You spend a lot of your time in them. What's different about how people talk, how they make decisions? What does it culturally feel like to be part of?
I'm going to go back to your pyramid earlier of confidence, mindset. I think mindset is one of the most important words here. When you see data and AI literacy in practice, people are confident that they can experiment and fail and not be in trouble for it, right? One of my favorite quotes is from Nelson Mandela. I should say favorite in that I share it all the time. I never lose. I either win or learn, right? It's this idea that you work on a data project for 6 months. Your mindset is, I might not get it right, but I can learn so much along the way. And me as a leader, I'm still going to reward you with a bonus. It's the curiosity. You question everything and you allow your work to be questioned. We always talk about question everything. People don't want their work questioned. You should be welcoming it left and right. It doesn't mean it's wrong, right? We just have to be open to other possibilities. Those to me, those 3 C's and that mindset when they're combined, that to me is a work in progress, but one that is succeeding. Doesn't mean you have to be all the way down the road. I've run many ultra marathons in my life. Starting at mile 1 can be just as hard as mile 49. A lot of times mile 49 is harder, right? But mile 1 and getting my legs going can be much harder. And so there's this idea, and I love it. Ali Hartman put it in there. Psychological safety is one of the key ways that you find data literacy and AI literacy succeeding. Now, Ali is my employee who's a change management brilliant specialist, much smarter in it than me. She understands things that I don't, hence why she's my employee. It gives, and friend, right? I don't want it to seem like some weird hierarchical thing. She's awesome. But the fact that she brought that into this mindset, confidence, the tools are the tools. They're going to be there. Clean data is going to be there. It's the behavior of the people that show me if a company is doing this right or not.
Agree. And a few of the things we'd probably highlight. People see the data and AI office as a partner, not as
Yep.
another. It's not their problem, it's our problem together. And that's not from a kind of boring data ownership perspective. It's like, how can we actually solve problems together as peers? I think that's a really good one. And then even kind of casual language things. So in our business, I would say disproportionately compared to large enterprises, people will say, oh, my hypothesis is this. Not I think this, not I know this, not my experience tells me. My hypothesis is this. We need to look at it though. We need to prove it.
Yep.
So all those things are things that you'll see and feel within a culture. I'm just conscious of time, but there is a massive data and AI literacy ROI piece here, and this is how we want to measure it. We hate measuring it by L&D metrics and training hours. When I think about a kind of project management team that we work with who've saved 270 hours already because they became more efficient in the way they managed their projects. They missed less deadlines. They were just able to track everything because they got into the data and understood that actually project management is a data problem. It's how you move resources around and get them to be well aligned. It's a data problem. £10 million payment risk avoided. There are mistakes being made in businesses every day that are underpinned by data that people just don't know to observe or care to observe right now. And those things are absolutely huge in terms of how we can avoid making mistakes that cost the business money.
Yep, absolutely.
And the stakes of AI are only going up. Looking ahead 2 or 3 years, like what does the role of the CDAO look like if they get this right? I mean, I think it's what if I was a CDAO, I would be putting investment into this space because it just makes me more likely to keep my job, if I'm honest. I think having a data literate and AI literate workforce, they understand my value, they understand what we're trying to achieve. What do you think it looks like for them, Jordan, in a couple of years' time?
For me, I do think, and it kind of goes along with Chris Gent just put a question in Q&A. I think we can hit on as we answer this. How do we measure this? Like, what does it actually look like? There is good adoption of the tool. Now, this is where we get into that weird, funky area. What does adoption mean? It's not necessarily usage of the tool. It's how much intangible things can we measure, such as how much data and AI was used in a decision. How was the human element used in the decision combined with the data elements? What does a CDAO role look like? What does the organization like in 2 to 3 years? It is a continual evolution of shifting, understanding, kicking to the curb when necessary, projects and things like that. For me, one of the top ways to measure if data literacy is working right, I'm going to take a look and see how much work have we eliminated. And the reason I say that is most organizations are doing more work right now than they need to, and it's not even close. Not even close. So have we taken a dashboard from 20 tabs down to 2 tabs? I had once a PowerPoint that was over 70 slides long. I broke it to 6 charts they could view on their phone. That's data literacy and ridding myself of one heck of a headache. That's what these organizations look like. It's not how much more work can you do. It's how much more value-added work can you do, which sometimes value increase comes from decreasing the crap. So that's, to me, I'm looking at organizations that AI and data is now native to everything you do, not a feature on the side. I'm looking how much work have you given up, and I'm looking at how much have you streamlined. Those are ways to look at it that aren't just, here, you checked the box and you took the course. It's an actual transformation that works.
Yeah, we had a conversation the other day with a business. I won't name them for obvious reasons, but their exec receive a 154-page PowerPoint deck
No.
on a 3 weekly basis. And I was like, how is that possible? That must be multiple people's full-time job just to get that deck right.
Yes.
And I said, what a good data literate workforce looks like is that deck is 10 slides now, not 154.
Greg, can I share something? That whole 70 PowerPoint slide thing, I stopped sending it and just sent those 6 charts they could view on the phone The smartest person to maybe ever work at American Express was the chief risk officer. He received that report. Guess how many people asked me for it? Zero. They didn't need it. It showed all that work that was being done. I just needed 6 charts that had descriptive and predictive analytics in it. That's all they needed.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you. Get rid of 100. If you're building something that's 150 slides long, I beg of you to go talk to your leader and say, can I please redo this?
Yeah.
Please.
Quick closing note, because we may not have time for questions, but literacy opens up possibility. This is something that you say regularly. What do you mean by this?
Right now, not only does it, the art of the possible is out there when you partner with data and AI more. You now have a PhD partner available to you 24/7. That is generative AI. I have my formula, engineered intelligence is data plus AI plus IQ plus EQ. 2 parts human, 2 parts data comes to life when you use these things for the right reason. But I'm also going to share one of the realisms around this. Being more data and AI literate makes you more marketable in a world where jobs are. We've seen it recently. Atlassian is laying off people because of AI. Block just let go 40% of their workforce because of AI. It's happening. So how do we make ourselves more tangible to our companies? We do it through literacy.
We do. And I agree. I think your career will be enabled by being data and AI literate. And I think that's the really important thing. We haven't got time for questions, unfortunately. I'm really sorry. We've taken some of us who've been going through, and I appreciate that. So right now, we will get any questions that haven't been answered. We'll get them answered offline, and we'll send you a connection on LinkedIn and get an answer to you, because we don't want to ignore them. We really appreciate them and value them. Sarah is about to put in the chat a new AI analysis, an AI literacy analysis model that we've just released. So if you are thinking, how do I know whether my organization is AI literate right now? Follow the link, see if you can go through that way of thinking about your organization. The link's in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much to Jordan. We are looking forward to doing more of these. I've loved the energy of the conversation. It's a very American thing to bring so much energy, and I always like to do it from a kind of British perspective, but it's not as British to bring loads of energy.
I don't think I've ever been told I don't bring enough energy, so maybe that's a good thing.
That is a brilliant thing. Thank you to everyone who's joined us, and I will see you all very soon.
Thanks, everyone.